They laughed loud, proud, raising crystal flutes of champagne like nothing in the world could touch them. I stood by the wall, gripping a plastic cup of warm cola, and I knew right then I had wasted my life on these people. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you're listening in the comments. Family, my greatest mistake. For 50 years, I gave them everything. My youth, my money, my silence. I lived alone, and that was fine. But every dollar I earned went to my sister Judy and her kids. They cried, I paid. They failed, I covered. They betrayed, I kept quiet. Until today. June 5th, Judy's 75th birthday. A grand ballroom at a downtown hotel, waiters in gloves, 6 buffet tables, a string quartet, helium balloons spelling her name. Even the mayor showed up. I stood near the exit. No one noticed me. Then Stacy, her daughter, took the mic. The same Stacy who almost went to prison in '09, saved only because I paid for her attorney. Her voice shook with emotion. My mom is the pillar of this family. She sacrificed everything for us. Everything we have, we owe to her. I crushed the plastic cup in my hand. Soda ran down my fingers. No one mentioned me. No one even looked in my direction. 50 years of silent loyalty erased. I walked out without saying goodbye. At home, I opened an old binder, thick, worn at the edges. Inside, every receipt, bank transfer, email thread, thank you note no one remembered writing. Hundreds of thousands of dollars. Years of life. Dozens of debts I paid off. And along with that binder, something opened in me. I wasn't going to argue. That's weakness. I was going to start a quiet war. Justice by paper. No shouting. Just precision. Their reputation would fall like a house of cards. I'd be the wind, unseen but final. I made a list. Stacy was first. Suspicious transfers into her nonprofit. Expenses disguised as operations, fake reports. I had it all. Then Drew. His investments were a mirage. He used my money, called it a loan for a few months. Then it became not the right time to repay. Now he drives a BMW and rents office space downtown. Kent was a class of his own. A fake refugee charity. 0 taxes, no audits. Donations that went straight into offshore accounts. I had records from every registry. They forgot me. Fine. Now they'll remember. I started printing the first file. It was going to journalist, anonymous tip, neatly packaged. Hard numbers, screenshots, documents. Enough for a scandal. Then crunch. I froze. It wasn't the printer. It came from the hallway. A slow step. Then a shadow blocked the light under my door. Someone was standing outside. Not knocking. Just standing. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. The shadow outside my door just stood there. No knock. No words. No movement. I waited. 30 seconds. A minute. Then quiet footsteps. Retreating. I walked to the door, slow, careful. My bare feet silent on the old hardwood. Looked through the peephole. Empty hallway. But something was different. A small, white envelope was wedged in the crack of the door. No return address. Just one word. Written in tight cursive across the front. Russell. I opened it at the kitchen table. The same table where I'd once signed over $25,000 so Stacy wouldn't lose her first house. Inside was a single typed line. Careful whose secrets you dig up. Some are still alive. That was it. No signature. No hint. Just a threat. I sat for a long time, the letter trembling in my hand. This wasn't just about humiliation anymore. Someone knew I was digging. Someone was watching. And they were afraid. Good. By morning, I'd scanned the note, stored it on an encrypted USB, and hid the original behind the frame of an old photo. Me and Judy, 1971. She was smiling then, genuinely. Before the money, before the masks. I got back to work. I wasn't going to let a coward in the dark scare me off. First target, Stacy. I pulled every public record I could find. Her nonprofit, Hearts United, had a tax ID and barely any real filings. Its declared purpose was disaster relief. Yet no staff, no overhead, no field work. Just donation links, glossy photos from stock image libraries, and vague phrases like impacting lives globally. The books were clean on the surface, but she made one mistake. A check from the nonprofit account written to a company called Ember West Solutions. I dug deeper. Ember West was a ghost. Registered in Delaware, managed through a proxy. But one of its payments? A lease on a new Lexus in Stacy's name. She was funneling donations into her own lifestyle, and I had the proof. I packaged everything into a folder. Printouts, images, timestamps. I created a burner email and scheduled it for delivery Tuesday, 9 a.m., to 5 regional journalists and one anonymous Reddit account that specialized in exposing nonprofit fraud. But I wasn't done. At 2 a.m., I opened a second binder. This one labeled Drew. He always played the polished prodigy. Armani suits, tech lingo, passive income. But his investment group was a stack of dry rot, hollow at the core. I cross-referenced property records and found 5 duplexes listed under his LLC, all purchased in the last 3 years. But the funding trail traced back to a loan, a personal loan from me. He never paid it back. Worse, he never listed me as a creditor. He stole the money and made me invisible. I had enough evidence to start a financial fire under both their feet. Then I checked my email and found a new message. No subject, no sender, just 5 words. We warned you. Stop digging. Attached was a photo. My apartment, my front door, taken less than an hour ago. I stared at the photo. My front door, taken in the dark, from a low angle. The timestamp in the corner said 2:36 a.m. It was 3:02. They'd been here. Again. Close enough to touch the doorknob. Close enough to kill the lights if they wanted. But they didn't break in. They wanted me afraid. And that told me everything. They weren't ready for a fight. They still thought I could be scared off. But they'd made the biggest mistake of all, threatening a man with nothing left to lose. By dawn, I'd made 3 decisions. 1, I would not run. 2, I would escalate. 3, I would not just expose them. I would humiliate them. I drove across town in my rusted Chevy, parked 2 blocks away from Stacy's house. Not because I was scared of being seen, but because I didn't want to ring cameras catching my license plate. I watched from the sidewalk under a tree. Her lights were out. Typical. Sleeping in while pretending to lead a global mission. She lived in a 2-story modernist box with floor-to-ceiling windows and a digital fireplace that she bragged about on Instagram. I knew this house. I helped her buy it when she was between clients, and the bank wouldn't approve her mortgage. I'd given her $60,000 to bridge the gap. And she'd never paid me back. Just sent a basket of pears and a thank you note that ended with, "Your family. What's mine is yours. What's mine is yours. Unless, of course, it's really yours." Now it was time to collect. I dropped an envelope into her mailbox. Inside, 4 pages of financial analysis, screenshots of nonprofit misappropriation, and a printout of the email I had scheduled to release Tuesday at 9 a.m. On the last page, in black ink, I wrote, "You have until Monday at midnight to tell the truth, or I will." Then I drove to Drew's office. He worked in a glass high-rise downtown with a view of the city and a coffee bar in the lobby that charged $7 for foam. I knew the receptionist. Told her I was delivering a personal file from a family foundation. She let me right up. His office door was closed. I slid the envelope under it. Same contents. Same threat. Then I went home, locked every window, and turned on the camera system I'd installed a week after that first knock on my door. This wasn't paranoia. It was preparation. And it paid off. At 11:47 p.m., motion alert. Camera 2. My back alley. A figure moved through the shadows. Hooded. Cautious. They approached the window, then backed off. 10 seconds later, they were gone. But not before I got a perfect frame of their face when they turned toward the light. Drew. He was watching me. He knew. And worse, he was getting reckless. I stayed up all night, watching the footage on a loop, planning the next step. By morning, I was back at my desk. This time, opening a new folder. One I hadn't touched in years. Labeled, Judy, the matriarch, the one they all bowed to. I thought about her birthday toast. her sitting at the head of the table like a queen in exile, pretending she built an empire of love. But I remembered other things. I remembered the man she left. The first one. The good one. I remembered what she did in '84 to get full custody of Stacy. And I remember the name of the man she paid off to keep her secret buried. I opened the drawer. Found the check stub. I hadn't touched it in 20 years. But I still remembered the amount. $12,000. Paid to a man named Ricky Maddox. And now I was going to find him. Because if I was right, Judy's entire fairy tale was built on a lie. Ricky Maddox. I hadn't spoken his name in over 20 years. Hadn't needed to. But the moment I saw that stub, $12,000, dated March 14th, 1984, it all came flooding back. Judy had been panicked then. Her marriage was crumbling. Stacy was barely 8, and the custody battle had turned ugly. The official story. Judy won sole custody because Frank had a temper. The truth. She paid Ricky Maddox, a courthouse clerk, to misplace certain documents and discover others, ones that painted Frank as unstable. It worked. She got full custody. And Frank, he disappeared a year later. Died in a motel room 2 states over. Heart attack. Alone. No one ever connected the dots. Except me. Because I was the one who drove Judy to that courthouse. I kept quiet then. Family first. But that loyalty died the night they erased me from their lives. I opened my laptop, fingers flying. Ricky Maddox wasn't hard to find. A short obituary for his father led me to a R. Maddox, working as a part-time notary and legal consultant in Reno, Nevada. Phone number. Office address. Still alive. Still in the game. I made the call. He picked up on the 3rd ring. Gravel voice. Suspicious tone. Who's this? This is Russell. Russell Hale. A pause. Then, I wondered when you'd come calling. You remember the payment? I remember more than that. I want to talk. No phones. If you're serious, come to Reno. Click. I booked a one-way ticket the same night. Left the apartment dark, camera running. Printed all the documents, slid them into a manila folder, tucked them into the lining of my suitcase. If this was going to blow up, I wanted to light the fuse in person. Next morning, 8:42 a.m., Reno, Nevada. His office was nothing, strip mall, tinted windows, dusty blinds. But Ricky was waiting. Older now. Gray stubble. Same cold stare. He didn't shake my hand. Just nodded to a seat across from his cluttered desk. You're here about Judy. You know what she did. I facilitated what she wanted. That's what I was paid for. Did you keep records? Ricky reached under his desk, pulled out a lock metal box. This, he said, is my insurance policy. I've got dirt on over a dozen people in here. Your sister's file is thick. I kept it because something about her always stank. He opened the box. Inside, papers. Old letters. Photocopies. One in particular stopped my breath. A signed affidavit, dated March 12, 1984. Falsely swearing Frank had assaulted Stacy. It was fake. It was vile. And it worked. She ruined him. I muttered. She ruined a lot of people. Ricky said. She just paid better than most. I asked for copies. He hesitated, then said, one condition. You burr her clean. Public. No backroom blackmail. That's exactly the plan. He handed over the file. I flew home that night with a new kind of weapon in my hands. And a deadline. Sunday evening. That's when I'd make my move. The press would get it first. Then the family. No more shadows. I stepped off the plane. Phone buzzing in my pocket. 10 missed calls. All from Stacy. And one text from an unknown number. Stop now, or Judy won't be the only one exposed. I opened the text and froze. Attached was a photo of my apartment, ransacked, and taped to the wall, written in thick black marker. Last warning. I stood in the middle of my living room, staring at the chaos. Drawers ripped out, cabinets gutted, picture frames shattered on the floor. Even the loose panel behind the bookshelf, where I kept my backup drive, was torn off. They were looking for the files. They didn't find them. Because I never kept anything important in this apartment. But the message on the wall. Last warning. Black ink. Block letters. Right where the old clock used to hang. They wanted to rattle me. Instead, they woke something deeper. I didn't call the police. Would have been useless. No fingerprints, no footage. My cameras were disabled before they came in. These weren't amateurs. They were family. I drove straight to a storage unit I'd rented a week ago under a fake name. Inside, a metal cabinet with everything. Every document, backup, and printout I'd gathered. Stacy's fraud, Drew's laundering, Judy's forged custody case. All secured in plastic sleeves, alphabetized and dated. By the time I left the storage unit, the sun was down. My phone buzzed again. Stacy again. This time I answered. "Uncle Russell, please," she said, her voice raw, not fake for once. "Don't do this." "Do what?" "You know what? The press called me. I told you. Midnight Monday. You had your chance." "I didn't mean for this to get out of hand," she whispered. God, we didn't think you'd actually fight back." There it was. The core of it. They never believed I would do anything. That's what made this beautiful. I hung up. No threats. No emotion. Just silence. The next morning, I paid a visit to a contact I hadn't seen in 20 years. Drew's old college roommate, Kent. Kent was the one black sheep no one liked to mention. He ran a shady consulting business and drank like he had a score to settle with his liver. But he owed me. I bailed him out in 2002 when he got arrested for tax fraud. His loyalty came cheap. "You want leverage on Drew?" he said, sipping from a chipped mug of instant coffee. "I've got files, investment statements, backdoor shell companies. He's hiding assets overseas. You burr him with this, he's finished." Ken handed me a USB drive, then grinned. "Make it spectacular." I left his place with the final nail for Drew's professional coffin. That night, I sat at my desk, uploading the last batch of files to an anonymous server. Everything was ready. Monday morning would be a massacre. But just as I clicked the final upload button, I noticed something strange. The screen flickered, then went black. Then a single message appeared in red text. "We told you to stop." And then, a second message popped up. "If you want to see what we're capable of, look out your window." I stood up, walked to the blinds, pulled them open, and there, across the street, parked right in front of my building, was Stacy's car. Empty, still running, with the passenger door open, and something wrapped in duct tape sitting on the seat. Something blinking red. I didn't blink. I didn't move. The red light blinked steadily from inside Stacy's car, casting a faint glow across the dashboard. The street was empty. No pedestrians. No other cars. Just me, staring from behind the blinds, heartbeat drumming in my throat. Whatever they put in that passenger seat, it wasn't flowers. Could have been a tracker. Could have been a threat. Could have been worse. I grabbed my phone, snapped a picture through the blinds, then stepped back. I didn't dare go outside. This wasn't fear. It was caution. Whoever left that car running wanted me to come outside, and I don't walk into traps. I set them. 5 minutes passed. The blinking didn't stop. So I made a call. Not the cops, no. I didn't want this on the record. I called someone I hadn't spoken to since 2014. Frankie Brewer. Back then, he handled security for a local tech firm. These days, he cleaned up problems. Quietly. For cash. "Russell Hale," he answered, chewing something. "I thought you were dead." "Not yet. I need eyes. Fast. Location." I gave it to him. "Stay inside," he said. "Don't be a hero." 20 minutes later, a black SUV rolled up slow behind Stacy's Lexus. Frankie stepped out in jeans and a bomber jacket, carrying a metal briefcase. He circled the car like a shark, tapped the window, checked the chassis, looked under the wheel wells. Then he opened the passenger door. I held my breath. He reached in, pulled out the blinking device. It wasn't a bomb. It was a GPS beacon, wired to a battery pack, taped to an old burner phone with a live call still running. "Tracking you," he said when he called me after. "And listening." That thing's been broadcasting your movements and your voice for hours, maybe days. Who set it up? Frankie snorted. Not amateurs. Military-grade battery. Foreign firmware. I'd say someone paid good money for this. He handed me the phone and left with the beacon. I crushed the phone under my boot. It wasn't about surveillance anymore. It was intimidation. But they just confirmed what I needed. They were running scared. That night, I finished the job. Uploaded every file. Every document. Every receipt. Every dirty secret. Set to release in waves to news outlets, regulators, tax boards, and anonymous social accounts. Scheduled to hit at 6 a.m. sharp. Let them try to stop it. Unless they could travel through time. They were already too late. I slept 2 hours. Maybe less. Then came the first alert. Inbox flooded. Journalists asking questions. 2 IRS field agents requesting anonymous confirmation. A local blogger posted Stacy's nonprofit scam with the headline, Queen of Compassion or Queen of Fraud. Perfect. At 7:15, Drew called. I didn't answer. At 7:27, Judy left a voicemail. Russell, we need to talk. At 7:59, I checked the final site. The last upload was live. I stepped out for air, finally. Sky was gray. Birds silent. The kind of calm before a real storm. Then my phone buzzed. A number I didn't recognize. I answered. You think you've won? A voice growled. Low. Rough. Not Stacy. Not Drew. You think exposing their dirt makes you clean? Who is this? You should have stayed invisible, Russell. We know what you did in 1986. My stomach went cold. Nobody knew about that. Except one person. And he'd been dead for 20 years. The year I buried a secret so deep I thought it would rot with my bones. Hearing it spoken aloud, and that voice, raspy, cold, was like someone dragging a nail across my spine. I didn't respond right away. Hello, the voice said again. Still there, Russell? How do you know about 1986? I finally asked. You tell me. He replied. How far are you willing to go before your own closet starts rattling? Then the line went dead. I stood frozen on the sidewalk, the phone still pressed to my ear even after the dial tone. Back when I was still working nights at the freight depot, scrapping for overtime, long before Judy's kids started calling me Uncle ATM. And it was the year I made a mistake. A big one. There'd been a fight. Not with family, no, with someone else. A man who tried to shake me down for cash, threatened to ruin my job over a lie. I confronted him in the depot's back lot. Things got loud. Things got physical. He fell. Hard. I never meant for it to go that way. But he didn't get up. I never saw him again. There were no charges. No cops. No questions. But someone had seen it and helped me clean it up. A man named Jorge Costa. He never asked for money. Just silence. And I gave it. Now someone was using it against me. Back in my apartment, I double-locked the door, sat at the desk, and started digging. Jorge Costa had disappeared in the late 90s. But I found a trail, 2 marriage licenses, construction company under his wife's name. And then nothing. Dead. Maybe. But someone knew about that night. And if they were bluffing, they were good. Too good. I checked my email. A new message. No subject. Just an attachment. I opened it. A grainy photo. Me. In 1986. Standing in that freight lot. Hands bloody. Face pale. Staring down at a man slumped against the concrete. The photo was real. Someone had been there. And now they were using it. If this got out, everything I had on Judy, Stacy, Drew, it would be dismissed as revenge. A smear campaign by a bitter man with a guilty past. I couldn't let that happen. I had to find whoever had the photo. Before they found a platform, I reached out to Frankie again. Told him everything. Even about 1986. He didn't flinch. If they've got that photo, they've got something bigger planned, he said. This ain't about just discrediting you. They want you erased. Can you trace the sender? I'll try. But if you want a faster answer, go back to the source. Who? The one who always protected secrets in your family. It hit me like a punch. Judy. She knew about 1986. She was the one who convinced me never to report it. She called in a favor back then, covered my tracks, and she always kept copies, which meant if this photo resurfaced, it was because Judy allowed it. Or worse, because Judy sent it. That night, I parked across from Judy's house. Lights off. Waiting. She hadn't called again. Hadn't texted. But at 2:41 a.m., her garage door opened, and a man walked out. Not Drew. Not Kent. Not anyone I recognized. He carried a briefcase, got into a black Lincoln, and drove off. I followed. 10 minutes later, he pulled up behind a warehouse outside city limits. I killed my headlights, watched him unlock a side door, and go inside. A red light blinked from above the door. Security camera. And beside it, a sign. Property of Maddox Legal Holdings. Maddox Legal Holdings. The name hit like ice down my spine. Ricky Maddox, the same man who took Judy's bribe in 1984. And now someone under his banner was sneaking briefcases out of her house at 2:41 a.m. Coincidence? No such thing. I stayed in the shadows, engine off, watching from a side alley. The man entered the warehouse through a steel side door and didn't come back out. I waited 20 minutes. No movement. Finally, I got out. Quiet steps. Crossed the lot. No alarms. No barking dogs. Just silence. The security camera above the door blinked once, then went still. I reached for the handle unlocked. Inside, rows of metal shelves stretched into the dark, each stacked with boxes, file cabinets, manila folders with coded labels. I stepped deeper in. Then I saw it. A black case sitting on a table, still open. Inside, documents. Not just about Stacy or Drew, but about me. Photos, old checks, hospital records, even that photo from 1986. Everything. Filed, categorized, controlled. And in the corner of the table, a burner phone. Still on. Recording. And right behind me, a voice. Low. Familiar. I told her not to keep the files in one place. I turned around, and there stood Judy, holding a pistol. I stared at the pistol. It wasn't shaking. That meant Judy had held one before. Close the case, she said, nodding toward the black box on the table. I didn't move. I said, close it. What is this, Judy? I asked, voice low. A retirement plan? A backup nuke for when your golden reputation cracks? She didn't answer. The silence between us felt heavier than the steel shelves around us. I never wanted it to go this way, she finally said. But you don't know the full story. You're right. I don't know why my sister, who I protected, who I gave everything to, is pointing a gun at me in a warehouse full of blackmail files. You started this war, Russell. No, I snapped. You started at the moment you turned your children into monsters. I just pulled the curtain back. She sighed. You think I raised them to be like this? To be greedy, fake, hollow? I tried to protect them. You protected your image. You have no idea what I had to do after Frank left, she said, her voice cracking for the first time. The debts, the threats, the people who came to the door. I didn't have the luxury of being clean. And I paid for all of it. I shouted. I carried the weight, Judy. I was the one who made sure they had futures. You let me become invisible. Her lips tightened. Then she lowered the gun. I didn't mean for it to become this. But now it's too late. If you release those files, none of us walk away clean. That's the point. She looked at the phone still recording on the table. Stop the uploads, she said. I'll give you everything. Everything they did. Even what I kept hidden. Why now? Because someone else has the files too. Someone who doesn't care about family. She pulled out a second phone. Opened a message. It was from Ricky Maddox. A video. Drew. In an office. Signing documents. And behind him, men I didn't recognize. Foreign suits. Serious eyes. These aren't just shell companies anymore, Judy whispered. They're laundering money. Real money. Dangerous money. She looked me dead in the eye. If you push this too far, you won't just take down the family. You'll bring down people who kill problems permanently. Then the door behind us creaked open. A silhouette filled the frame. Not Ricky. Not Stacy. Not Drew. Someone I'd never seen before. "Mr. Hale," the man said, stepping forward, smooth as shadow. "It's time we had a talk about 1986. He stepped fully into the warehouse light, mid-40s, tailored suit, no tie. Clean, controlled. The kind of man who didn't blink unless he had a reason. Judy stiffened beside me. "Russell Hale," he said again, with a voice like polished glass. "You've stirred quite the storm. Who are you?" I asked, fists clenched at my sides. "A consequence." He didn't smile. Didn't need to. "I represent people whose interests are entangled with Drew's financial network," he continued. "Until recently, you were a ghost. A name on a forgotten check. But now you're a problem." He walked past Judy, like she wasn't even there. Stopped at the open case of documents. Lifted a single folder. Flipped through it. "Impressive work. Very meticulous. You build a case better than most federal agents. Unfortunately, that makes you dangerous." He turned back to me. "There are two paths forward," he said. "One, these files disappear. You disappear. No more emails. No more exposure. Just silence. We'll even sweeten it. A retirement account, offshore, clean. Enough to live out your days." I didn't respond. He nodded slowly. "Option two, you keep going. You make this public. And very bad people come looking. Not just for you. For anyone who helped you." He looked at Judy. Then at the burner phone. I could feel my throat tighten. He knew everything. I looked at Judy. "You brought them into this?" "I didn't have a choice," she whispered. "Drew did. I tried to protect." "You protected yourself." The man raised a hand, stopping us both. "This is your last moment of control, Mr. Hale." Then he pulled a flash drive from his coat, dropped it on the table. "All your files. Everything you uploaded. We intercepted it. You're not the only one with tech friends." He turned to leave. "I'll give you 48 hours, he said over his shoulder. "Then we clean up, one way or another." And just before he stepped into the night, he added one last thing. "Oh, and if you're wondering who took that photo in 1986. He looked back at me, eyes sharp. "That was me." The door clicked shut behind him, and the silence left behind was suffocating. I stared at the flash drive on the table like it was a ticking bomb. My entire operation wiped, intercepted. Everything I thought I'd released into the world was now neatly boxed, returned to me like a dog brought back its broken leash. Judy leaned against a shelf, pale and shaking. "That man," she whispered. "I saw him once. After Drew's second investment conference. He never gave a name. Just an envelope." "Was that when the money started coming in faster than he could explain?" She nodded slowly. "They never say who they work for. But you feel it, the weight, the danger. They don't threaten. They just declare. 48 hours. That's what he gave me. Not time. Not a warning. A countdown." I picked up the flash drive, weighed it in my palm, and slid it into my pocket. If they really intercepted everything, I had no choice but to rebuild. From scratch. But I wasn't alone anymore. Judy was finally seeing the cost. And if she was scared, that meant she could be useful. "I need everything Drew gave you," I said. "Every deal. Every wire. Every favor." She nodded and pulled out a keychain. A tiny silver USB drive tucked between her house keys. "This is all I have left. I kept it just in case." We left the warehouse in silence. That night, back in my apartment, I opened her drive. Files. Dozens. Invoices from shell companies tied to Eastern Europe. Offshore transfers routed through Caribbean banks. Photos of meetings with men whose names only appeared in redacted intelligence reports. This wasn't just corruption. It was treason. I had enough to bury them all. But exposing it would mean war with people who didn't send cease and desist letters. They sent coffins. Still, I had to act. I made contact with someone I hadn't spoken to since the early 90s, a journalist named Lee Vance. Back then, he was a rookie covering union strikes. Now, he ran an independent whistleblower platform. secure, anonymous, funded by people who hated corruption as much as I did. I sent him 3 files. No names, just the data. He replied in 7 minutes. Where did you get this? I didn't answer. If this is legit, you're on a list. A short one. Get off grid. I'll publish with or without you. Good. That's all I needed. I powered down the computer, packed a bag, and stared at the walls of my apartment. 48 hours. The clock was ticking. I needed somewhere to hide, somewhere they wouldn't think to look. And I had just a place. The old cabin. Dad's place. Off the grid since 1972. No cell towers. No cameras. Just trees. Cold air. And a rusted bolt-lock door. I left before dawn. No note. No forwarding address. No calls. But just before I crossed the county line, a road sign flashed in the headlights. Spray-painted in red, sloppy but clear. Turn back, Russell. I didn't turn back. Not because I wasn't afraid, but because I was done letting fear drive the car. The spray-painted warning felt desperate. Sloppy. That meant someone was watching, but not controlling. They were reacting. And that meant I still had the upper hand. 2 hours later, I pulled off the highway onto a forgotten dirt road. Trees swallowed the trail as I drove deeper into the woods. My headlights the only thing separating me from absolute darkness. The cabin looked just like I remembered it, leaning to one side, roof patched with tin, windows clouded by years of dust and pine needles. But it was safe. No cameras, no signals, no digital footprints. Just quiet. I unpacked fast. Set up a solar-powered laptop I'd bought years ago, but never used. Laid out the files Judy gave me on the dining table, paper, not digital, just in case. Then I lit the fireplace. The heat felt unnatural after all the cold stares I'd seen lately. I dozed off in an armchair sometime after midnight, shotgun beside me. Old habits never really die. I woke up to the smell of coffee. Not mine. I shot up, hand on the gun. But the cabin was empty. Except there was a steaming mug on the table, and a note beneath it. Typed, "You're late." No signature. No prints. But someone had been inside. Someone who didn't want to kill me. Not yet. I checked the door. Still locked. Windows. No break-ins. They had keys. Or knew how to walk through walls. I dumped the coffee and burned the note. Then I went to work. I cataloged everything. Drew's money trail. Stacy's fake charity. Judy's blackmail files. And now, the offshore transactions tied to foreign intelligence networks. I had to organize it all into something airtight. Because when Lee Vance went public, it had to be undeniable. I was 3 hours into organizing when the satellite phone rang. Only 2 people had the number. It was Lee. "You need to listen carefully," he said, out of breath. "We were hacked. Everything you sent me. They tried to wipe it. I had backups. But they're watching me now. You still publishing. I'm not backing down. But they know where you are. I didn't tell them. I swear. But somehow, they knew you'd go off-grid." I felt a chill spread down my spine. How long do I have? I don't know. But they're not sending suits this time. And then, glass shattered in the back of the cabin. A flashlight beam swept across the wall. Voices outside. Men. Closing in. I dropped the phone and grabbed the shotgun. Footsteps pounded against the porch. A second flashlight beam cut through the side window. I backed toward the cellar door, remembering Dad's old escape tunnel. A narrow dirt crawl space that led 50 yards into the woods. Glass shattered behind me. They were inside. I yanked the cellar open, slipped down the creaky stairs, and slammed it shut just as heavy boots hit the kitchen floor above. No time to think. Just crawl. The tunnel was tighter than I remembered clay walls, roots clawing at my sleeves, damp soil pressing into my back. I kept moving, inch by inch, the shotgun scraping beside me. Voices echoed behind me, closer now. They said he'd be armed. Don't give him a chance to shoot. My heart thudded against my ribs like a drum solo. I reached the end of the tunnel, kicked open the old grate, and rolled out into the underbrush. The forest swallowed me whole. Cold air, damp pine, silence. I didn't stop running until my lungs screamed. By dawn, I put 7 miles between me and the cabin. I reached an old ranger station long since abandoned, broke open the lock, and collapsed inside. No power, no signal, but it would do for now. I unrolled the maps I had packed, traced routes to the nearest town, and planned my next move. I needed a new upload point. Lee was compromised. My files were all that mattered now, and I had one last play. I reached into my coat pocket. The second flash drive. A duplicate I never told anyone about, not even Judy. One upload, one shot, no room for failure. But as I turned to check my bag, it was gone, ripped open, and in its place, a single photo. Me, sleeping in the ranger station, taken minutes ago. The photo in my hand was warm, still fresh, taken up close, just a few feet away, while I slept on the cold wooden floor of the ranger station. Someone had been in the room with me, quiet, controlled, and they wanted me to know it. I searched the station, slow, methodical. Every cabinet, every shadow. Nothing. No footprints. No tire tracks. Just that single photo and the unmistakable feeling that I was running out of moves. They weren't chasing me anymore. They were circling. I took the flash drive, still tucked deep in my inner coat lining, untouched, and tucked it into my boot. If they wanted it, they'd have to dig it out of me. By midday, I was moving again. Took the back trails, avoided the roads, kept off the grid. I used paper maps, old instincts. No signals, no noise, just silence and the weight of the storm building behind me. The plan was simple now. Reach an old contact in the city, a retired systems engineer named Carl who owed me a favor from way back. He had what I needed, a satellite uplink independent of all major providers, the kind used by war correspondents and people who didn't want to be found. I hiked for hours. No signs of pursuit, but no comfort either. I was deep in enemy territory, and the enemy wore my family's last name. As twilight bled into night, I reached the outskirts of the city. The skyline pulsed in the distance like a waiting trap. Carl's safe house was 2 blocks from the industrial district. If I made it there, I could end this, expose everything, end the Hale legacy for good. But as I approached the alley behind Carl's building, I saw the door ajar, splinters around the lock, and just inside, in the glow of a flickering overhead light, Carl, slumped over, motionless, and on the wall behind him, written in black marker, "Too late, Russell." Carl's body was still warm. No signs of struggle, no blood, no bruises. Just silence. Too clean. Professionals. I checked the room. Computer smashed, wires cut, router fried. Everything valuable gone or gutted. They weren't just after the files. They were after the means to expose them. And they knew I was coming. I sat in the corner of the dark room, my breath shallow, watching the alley from a cracked window. No footsteps. No headlights. Just tension. They were sending a message. Even your allies aren't safe anymore. But they underestimated one thing. Carl had a backup. Years ago, we set up a mirror protocol for if things go bad. He stored a clean uplink key in a hidden panel, wrapped in tinfoil, behind the air vent. I found it. Still there. They'd missed it. Or maybe. They let me find it. Didn't matter. It was my last shot. I booted Carl's old laptop using a portable power bank I carried for emergencies. Hooked up the uplink. The system flickered to life. No security, no firewall, just raw, direct connection. The kind of link that left a glowing trail behind me, like a flare in the dark. But it would be fast. I inserted the flash drive, opened the folder, selected full release. The cursor hovered over the final button, broadcast. I took a deep breath. I clicked. Uploading. 10%. 22%. At 37%, the screen glitched, then froze, and a new message appeared. Connection terminated. Source disabled. Then, the lights went out, and from behind me, a familiar voice whispered, "I told you this would end with you, Russell." I didn't turn around right away. I knew the voice. Drew. His tone was calmer than I expected, almost regretful, as if we were brothers, not adversaries at the edge of something unspeakable. You had a choice, Uncle, he said, but you made this about revenge. No, I whispered. I made it about truth. You think truth matters anymore? This world doesn't reward honesty, it devours it. He stepped closer. I could hear his shoes on the linoleum. You made us what we are, he said, quieter now. You gave us money without teaching us what it meant. You bailed us out instead of letting us fall. You weren't our uncle. You were our insurance policy. I turned then, slowly. He wasn't holding a gun. He didn't have to. He held the satellite key in one hand and the lighter in the other. I can destroy everything right now, he said. No more uploads. No more crusades. Just silence. But that won't save you, I said, because the world already saw enough. The partial upload, it reached 3 servers. It's replicating. Right now. He blinked. Lied. You're bluffing. I shook my head. I learned from the best. Drew's hand trembled. For the first time, I saw what he really was. Not a predator, but a man clinging to an empire built on illusions. Then he dropped the lighter and ran. I let him. Let him carry the weight of what came next. Because within hours, the wave hit. Lee Vance pushed the leak through dark web nodes, mirrored sites, peer-to-peer chains. News outlets jumped in. The files were authenticated. The names were named. Stacy's nonprofit shut down. Drew indicted. Judy, she vanished. No charges. Just silence. But that was enough. The world they built collapsed not with a scream, but a whisper. And me, I disappeared too. No interviews. No memoir. Just a cabin, a chair, and the peace of being forgotten by people who once used my name as currency. But sometimes, late at night, I get messages. From strangers. From victims. From whistleblowers. They call me a hero. They're wrong. I wasn't the hero. I was just a man who decided silence had gone on long enough. If you like this story, please like this video. Subscribe to the channel and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the right.